obviously, so is Nicole. You know, the vice president. I understand the consistency aspect, but as far as a logistical standpoint, and yeah, it's one less seat that may go.
Further question?
I know like last year when you ran, well, for president, only 2 senators ran for off campus. Maybe just out of curiosity, what happened if that 3rd senator spot isn't filled?
Yeah, great question. So I think the numbers going back, David, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been anywhere between 2 people and 6 people running for that one senatorial position. So that's going to change every year. I would preface that that should not be reflected how many students or how many seats off campus should be. If it's going to be on the philosophical principle, based on where you reside, we should definitely stick with that number. The contingency that we do have is the off-campus council has already amended our bylaws to incorporate the fact that if a seat goes unfilled based on election, that the off-campus president will be empty under the off-campus. So it follows the exact vacancy procedure, rest of the Constitution. So any other senatorial position, Dunn, Fisher, Morrissey, any hall, someone would then be chosen, and then president of the off-campus council at that part.
So this is this might be more fitting for debate, so maybe I can rescind.
Is there a motion for debate?
My motion for debate.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor of moving to debate? All opposed? All abstaining? We are in debate. What points of debate do you have?
So I'm not trying to like poke holes in this, 'cause I think this is great, but thinking about the numbers, and we're adding more senators and seeing, this is just something to consider. This isn't me saying like I'm not voting yes for this. Because I likely am, I think I actually am. But like I am. But considering we've had quorum issues nearing the end of the year, and considering if you're an off-campus senior about to graduate, adding a few more positions in the Senate, and I don't mean to stereotype seniors, but I feel like seniors are probably the least likely to end up at a Senate seat. So just putting it out there, there may be additional quorum issues with adding seniors, and I'm just throwing that out there. And maybe there's a reason that you disagree, but I just want
Are there other points of debate?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like if somebody already living all the way off campus decides that they want to do this, like going into this year, I feel like we won't have a huge problem with like attendance.
Other points of debate?
So unanimous consent to move out of debate and into a vote.
Is there a second? All those in favor of ending debate and moving to a vote, please raise your hand. All opposed? All abstaining. We're now in a vote. All those in favor of approving the order, please raise your hand. All opposed? And all abstaining. The order passes. SS 21-22-14. Would one of the authors begin reading the resolution?
A resolution calling for participation in the Energy Star Higher Education Benchmarking Initiative. Whereas care for God's creation is one of the 7 principles of Catholic social teaching, and the pursuit of sustainability is directly related to the Catholic mission of the University of Notre Dame. Whereas in our endeavor to act as good stewards, the university has worked to manage the emissions and pollutants caused by our energy production. Whereas the University of Notre Dame has committed itself to the goal of carbon neutrality by the year 2050. Whereas the university is working to achieve that goal through energy conservation infrastructure, investing in more efficient technology, behavior change programs, educating and incentivizing the campus community to save energy and energy decarbonization using cleaner energy. Whereas the university has remained committed to these initiatives by upgrading buildings, using LED lights, installing solar panels, thermal storage tanks, and geothermal energy systems, and working with the city of South Bend to construct a hydroelectric facility on the St. Joseph River Dam. Whereas the university has called for student participation in creating a more sustainable campus environment with the creation of sustainability cup competition. Whereas the University of Notre Dame recognizes water as an essential natural resource that plays vital roles in campus operations and acknowledges Pope Francis's statement of avoiding water waste. Whereas the university has tried to preserve water by installing out-of-lake water economizers, updating buildings with water-efficient retrofits, replacing its sprinkler system with a high-efficiency system, and implementing a stormwater quality management plan. Whereas the University of Notre Dame installed green roofs on top of the Joyce Center, Morrison, Corbett Family Hall, Duncan Student Center, and O'Neill Hall. Whereas green roofs help the university achieve its energy and water conservation goals by mitigating stormwater runoff, improving air quality, and serving as natural insulation. Whereas the EPA Energy Star Higher Education Benchmarking Initiative was created to provide institutions with a way to measure their sustainability commitments against other peer institutions. Whereas the HEBI program tracks the self-reported energy and water usage of participating institutions. Whereas this comparison helps universities move beyond university sector challenges and deliver actionable insights at no cost to the participating university. Whereas 74% of prospective college students say a college's environmental commitment would affect their college decision, according to a study from the Princeton Review. Whereas participating in the HEBI program is a way for the university to ensure itself as an environmental leader among peer institutions, as well as providing an accessible way for potential students to assess the environmental commitments of the university. Whereas the university has shown interest and commitment to participating in benchmarking programs in the past through its participation in the AASHE Sustainability Tracking Assessment and Rating System. Therefore, be it resolved by the Student Senate of the University of Notre Dame du Lac that the University of Notre Dame should enroll as participant in the EPA Energy Star Higher Education Benchmarking Initiative.
Thank you so much. What questions do you have?
So if we pass it, and I think we should, it's a great idea. Does the university like, where does our body stand on like making them do it? If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in conversation with the Office of Sustainability on this. Caitlin Jacobs has actually been interested in participating in this in the past, and she thought that a student push would be a really good way to get us to participate in this second year that they're doing it this year. So.
Just quick clarification question. O'Neill Hall of Music or Preston?
O'Neill Hall attached to the stadium.
Okay.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Other questions? Paul?
Just out of curiosity, is there like a good measure to look at of what other competitive universities are partaking in EPA Energy Star?
Yes, so for the Energy Star, this is what Energy Star is trying to do, to have a benchmarking program for higher institutions of learning. So since that's kind of hard to track, since campuses offer different challenges, because there's so many different buildings on a campus, they all require metering to track. That's the EPA. This is the EPA's effort to have a consistent way of tracking it.
Okay.
Other questions? Ben? Is there any objections? Hearing none, we move. Great. We're in debate. What points of debate do you have? Right.
I'd just say it's not explicitly written, but Notre Dame already like meters all of their buildings for all of it, so it really is no cost to the university to join this program. So I urge you to think about what.
Other points of debate? Yes. Are there any objections? Hearing none, we move. All those in favor of approving the resolution as written, please raise your hand. All opposed? All abstain. Congratulations. Next on our agenda is the order about which Madison's initial report was. This is the hall endorsements order. Martha,
Yes.
could you read the order for us?
Yes, sorry, I'm a little sick, but I'll do my best. In order to amend the Constitution of the undergraduate student body to revise Article 15, whereas SO 212206 amended the Constitution to allow all presidents and vice presidents to endorse and to allow candidates to claim residence hall to endorsements, whereas the Constitution neither forbids resident hall endorsements nor does it provide guidelines for them. Whereas residents do not have the ability to choose their residence hall, whereas Notre Dame states residence halls are where students first belong unconditionally the moment their hall assignment is made. Whereas having an ambiguous system for hall endorsements could jeopardize the sense of unconditional belonging. Whereas many hall presidents and vice presidents felt a sense of apprehension about making a decision on behalf of their hall with no mechanism in place. Whereas multiple hall presidents and vice presidents have expressed support for this amendment, whereas hall endorsements can inflate the personal endorsement of a hall president or a vice president, as with no system in place, the endorsement of the residence hall has historically just been their opinion, whereas having a system in place for residence hall endorsements could give the hall endorsement the proper value that it deserves, whereas having a system in place for residence hall endorsements could separate and clarify the potential difference between the hall president endorsement and hall endorsement, whereas the more rigorous system of endorsements can potentially increase voter turnout, whereas to keep judicial council from being flooded with meritless allegations, the separation between the residence hall endorsement and the hall president endorsement could be helpful, whereas hall president council and student government are very separate institutions and proper metrics should be put in place so the role and power of the hall president is not inflated. Whereas it is commonplace for other clubs and organizations with value endorsements to pull before giving an endorsement, such as the Observer or Scholastic. Whereas a hall endorsement should come from the hall itself and not just its leadership, as this is often a circumstance of great bias, therefore be it ordered by the Student Senate of the University of Notre Dame du Lac that the Constitution of the undergraduate student body pursuant to section 1G of the rules hereby amended as follows. Article 15, section 1G4 is hereby inserted as follows. Residence halls can endorse candidate tickets, although for the student body president and vice president election, this endorsement may be only if they adhere to the following procedure. The residence hall will pull their hall via Google form sent out by their senator with the rector as a collaborator. The senator will submit all polling results to the rector, and the rector will also be able to watch the results live as they come in. The residence hall will need at least 20% of their hall to participate in the vote. The ticket that has the plurality of the valid votes after 24 hours will win that residence hall's endorsement. And B, if 20% of that hall has not participated after 24 hours, then the poll will stay open for an additional 12 hours.
What questions? Here.
So in this resolution, you talk about a need of being representative of the student body. How is 20% of the hall representative of the hall in general?
So there was constitutional basis for why we chose 20%, and I might yield more to David on that. But basically, we were thinking like voter turnout isn't great. So in like the last student body elections, we got like, I think was it 56% of the student body, but then also 20% is the number needed, I think, for like referendum. I'm not exactly.
You want to yield?
Yeah, so yield to you on that.
Yeah, so another place where 20% appears in the Constitution is the initiative procedure. So if you get enough signatures on a petition, then an initiative goes out, which is essentially a question to the student body that can bind the Senate to take a certain action. And that requires a 20% voter turnout. So that's the only other sort of similar mechanism I can think of for the Constitution. So well, I think it is potentially valid as a, it's not arbitrary.
Yeah, following up with that, I don't think those two are comparable at all because that 20% requires an initiative to then take the poll on that certain resolution versus this is requiring a 20% minimum threshold to even endorse. I'm just asking how is 20%, 2 out of every 10 students living in the hall, how is that representative of the hall in general?
I mean, it's like I said, like we just didn't think writing this that we were going to be able to get 50% because like we can barely get 50% in the like normal election. So I think it's better than nothing, at least like it is a fifth of the dorm and like it could start like the promoting and the advertising for the student body elections, but
I'm not entirely sure what like I guess what the need of like a hall endorsement would be for student body elections. I'm not. Sorry, I'm not super.
okay, no, that's fine. I wrote this with the vice president of my dorm, and we felt like in the past 2 elections, it's quite often, or at least we've seen with Alan and then now Patrick, they come from HBC, like they were presidents of their dorm, and we feel like HPC and the student government are very 2 different things, but because they're like they previously hold roles in HPC, it kind of seems like their friends in HPC are then kind of like helping them win the election, which is great. Like, I'm not saying that they're not qualified, but we want there to be more metrics in place. So it's not just like the hall president reaching out to their friends in HPC and unilaterally speaking on behalf of like 200 people in the hall. We wanted there to be more of a system in place. So it's not just like the hall president of Walsh, for example, can just be like, yeah, I'm supporting this person. So the whole dorm is supporting for this person.
Okay.
So I have a bunch of questions and a bunch of thoughts, but I think like before I say anything, I kind of want to like ask Caroline what you think, considering your involvement. Am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed to do that?
Questions for the author.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can always
Sorry,
agree.
I'm breaking rules here. Are there other questions?
Abraham.
Yeah, so as the elected president of the hall, why is it not democratic for the president who was duly elected by the hall by over 50%? Why is that not democratic for them to allow them giving deference from the residents to them as elected individuals to choose for the hall?
Well, I mean, I think HPC and student government are 2 different things. Like, I wrote this in the spirit of like, for HPC, like, you want your hall president to like plan events, to bring the community and the dorm together. Whereas like for student body president, you're more looking for like a candidate that's gonna pass policy, that's gonna like lobby for different things at the university. So they're 2 very different roles. And I think playing the 2 is pretty, it's not the best way. So we wanted a better metric system in place. Yeah.
Can I add? I'm also an alternate.
Yes.
Yes. I think another reason too is that when you think about when hall president council elections happen, that's almost a full year before the student government exec cabinet is even like running for student government leaders. So that's not necessarily like during the hall president election. That's not necessarily a thought that goes into it because we don't even know who for student body president and student body vice president. So that's not necessarily a consideration. So that's why we thought it was important to have like this other separate process.
Neighbor.
Yeah, so if that's something that the residents themselves are truly invested in, why can't they force candidates for hall president to put that into the platform? If the residents are like, we want this, we want a mechanism for endorsement, the presidents are within their capacity to establish this endorsement process without the universities, without the student senate mandating a specific procedure.
I don't think, and I think this has come up a lot of times in the Senate, like most students don't really know like that much about the student union or what the student union does. So I don't even think they would know that much to like want to ask that. Like, I think they wouldn't even think about that when they're thinking of like, who do we want as hall president? They're just thinking of like, oh, is this person going to put on fun events? Oh, do I like this person? They're not really thinking about that far down the line of student body elections.
Carol?
My question is, would you want to talk to the HPC co-chairs about this? Just to pick brains for ideas and maybe ask questions and bounce things off and maybe buff things out a little more.
I'm not opposed to that at all.
I'm an HPC co-chair.
So to the point that those in HBC might try to assist those that are running, that's probably valid. I also see valid that those executives have been around also supporting those executives. So by that logic, also those executives have.
Well, the difference is like the hall presidents
like, they can kind of speak on behalf of like 200 people, whereas people in the exec cabinet, I don't really think they have that same power. So it's kind of, or, I mean, maybe I don't know enough about exec cabinet to really answer that, but it's more so like also like the residence halls are like one of the few things at Notre Dame that's like completely random. So it's like you get randomly placed into a dorm, then randomly have like the hall president speak on behalf of you. That's why we were thinking about maybe extending this to clubs, but we didn't want to tackle too many things at once. So that's why we just focused on the halls.
So like for 20%, would the endorsement need a plurality or a majority of?
We chose plurality.
So theoretically, if there's like 3 candidates running, a person could end up just getting 7% of the vote. To win that endorsement.
I mean, yeah, this is just an endorsement procedure. It's not like it really means that much, but we wanted to make sure there's a proper metric in place.
You cite a reason behind this for preventing judicial council from being credited with merit activation. I'm just wondering if historically J council has been given a lot of merit allegations that are related.
I might yield to David for that.
So next test, then yes, the endorsement section has 3 within the past 2-3 years, 3 endorsement allegations that were made meritless, alleging that Hall's endorsed, and 2 additional ones alleging that all presidents or vice presidents.
Other questions? Other productive questions? Abraham.
Yeah, so individual hall presidents have the prerogative to establish like town halls or a debate or some mechanism of endorsement for their own halls. Why should we force them to adopt a one-size-fits-all policy?
I think this is as authors, we thought this was like the fairest way because again, like most people don't really know that much about student union. I don't really see like the hall presidents really trying to take this initiative unless it's like forced in on it. And then we also believed that like, because there's not that much voter turnout, but the main way that there is by word of mouth. So if you're already getting people to speak about this in the dorm floor, we thought something like this would get people thinking about it before you actually vote in the student body elections.
I think this procedure.
Not really, but I can see how you would think of it that way. We kind of, it kind of is like, I guess, a feeler for the election, but like, we kind of wanted it to be a way is like, you're already talking about the student body election, so more people are aware of them before it happens.
Yeah.
I guess my real question is, what harm do you think like an endorsement from a hall, like how much do you think that dictates an individual's vote? Because like my hall didn't endorse a candidate, but still voted in the student union for student president. I don't think like whether or not my hall president picked the candidate, just like any person suggesting to vote for a ticket, like isn't it up to the individual's vote? Like how much impact do we think the hall president's endorsement has?
I mean, so the thing is right now, the hall presidents are able to endorse and halls are also able to endorse, but there isn't like anything separating the two. So it's like, we kind of want there to be more of a system in place because like my hall, like my presidents were like, they were like, we are voting for these people, but they didn't want to speak on behalf of the hall. Whereas other presidents were like, okay, I'm voting for this, so our hall's voting that way. So it's like hard because like you can't really see the data, but we still think like if there's like a system in place, then it can limit, then individuals can vote for whoever they feel like, and then the endorsement will truly be representative of the hall.
Paul has a question. I was going to motion to move out of questioning to debate.
My question was, I think you really hit on something big there, is distinguishing between the hall president and the hall endorsement. And I'm trying to turn this into a question. I just wanted to like really emphasize, I think that's something that needs to be addressed in a Senate order. You're totally right. Elizabeth.
Motion to move out of questioning into the
Second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed. And all abstain. We're in debate. Paul.
I think it's incredibly important. I think it's really, really important that there's something done with hall endorsements in the Senate. I put the question about whether it affects elections or not. I don't even think that's a question. I think that it has a great deal of sway. And I do think that there needs to be a standardized mathematical approach to it. Whether this is that final iteration, who knows? But like I do think that you kind of sold me on that last part, distinguishing between the hall presidents and the hall.
Yeah, several things. One, I really like that y'all put this together, because there were a couple of instances, at least in my dorm, where we didn't even know dorms could endorse candidates, and a candidate was endorsed, and there were a lot of people who were like, well, that doesn't speak for me as a member of VP, but it looks like VP has nominated, well, endorsed this whole candidate. I like the 20% number, and I feel like it should stay that way, because I just did the math, and 20% of VP doesn't even make up our entire hall council. We actually have like 15% of VP. And I feel like, at least in my dorm, hall council is who would kind of care enough about this stuff. So I think it's a good number. In response to like how much sway it has, I feel like it has a lot of information. Unfortunately, just like with regular politics, not everybody is going to, research the platform, decide where their values lie. At some point, it is a bit of a popularity contest. And all the platforms, whenever a dorm endorses them, just like if the Rover endorses them, if the Observer endorses them, they put that forward because like, hey, this body, this group of people is endorsing us. This is why you should vote. I feel like it's a good number. I feel like we should all vote on this. Yeah.
Okay.
So I appreciate the thoroughness of this. I agree that given, because I'm on Comcom, I was part of the group that amended the way we now proceed with endorsements and was on Comcom, we considered this. And we saw a Comcom report on this that we, after considering it throughout the duration of one entire meeting, was focused on this order. We unanimously decided to reject it, not because there isn't merit to this issue of we don't, we need to figure out there's complexities to all president endorsements versus endorsement by the hall. I agree there is merit considering that issue. I oppose the measure in Comcom because I didn't find this specific mechanism very feasible nor the best way to go about that. Speaking from experience, the current likelihood you'll get 20% response to a Google form in your residence hall. And I did, even when I did this during COVID, when everybody was invested in what were student leaders doing to address COVID rules, I hardly ever cracked 20%. So the odds of that happening is impossible, and especially around election time. But I'd say it's, as the Comcom report indicates, the one big thing here is there's an issue of no enforcement. Say we go about this and say a vote turns out a certain way, we want to endorse candidate A, but the hall goes ahead and endorses candidate B, or whether the hall president does that, or some social media coordinator does that. We don't know. We don't know who made that decision. There's no way to enforce that. So that was one of the primary concerns of Comcom, which is why we ultimately rejected it. To Dan's point, all endorsements don't constrain voters. You can vote however you choose, whether you're aware of the election, a year in advance or the day of, whether you're all endorsed, didn't endorse, you have the right to vote however you see fit. Now, students may not realize this. Again, elections here are confusing, the student union is confusing, life is confusing, like people may not be aware of that. And because we've been changing these rules, those who may have understood it, who are far and few between, I would guess, probably don't understand it still now. So I think one part of the solution for next year's elections, if this is an issue, could be looking at how Judicial Council, the election committee could, and maybe even Senate could better communicate to all students what constitutes an endorsement and how that doesn't impact their vote. What does an endorsement mean? Well, it just means that a certain constituency, collectively, supports a certain candidate. It does not mean that everybody in that constituency must vote in that direction. But there is no ramification if you vote for someone. So that's why I'm opposed to this. And as a last tidbit, the language specifically, this procedural matter going into the Constitution is not something that would seem to be constitutional. It would be more of a bylaw of sorts, maybe in HPC or within judicial council, but I'm opposed to this.
Caroline.
All right. A few things. One, I will state personally through experience and also leading the group of presidents and also witnessing the elections last year, I do think that presidents have a influential sway over how maybe uninformed freshmen or sophomores may vote. Yeah. Second, I think this order, there's no way to enforce it. So I think it's a little bit mute at this point to keep debating it. I think what we should do is take it back and look at maybe changing the whole like election endorsement process through the halls, making it an opt-in option. So halls have the option through a specific type of vote, through whatever you want to do, whatever percentages you want to make, to opt in, to as a hall come together and say, we are going to endorse this candidate. Otherwise, hall presidents and vice presidents can still endorse, but they have to make it specifically stated that it is their personal endorsement, not on behalf of the halls. That's my take.
Abraham.
Yeah, a few points. I would add on to what was just stated. I would reject this resolution. As stated earlier, like individual presidents have the prerogative to establish how they want to endorse. Nothing is stopping them from doing so. If they want to, they can establish a town hall style of meeting, or they can have a debate, or they can set their own minimum percentages for endorsements. Under this resolution, you don't even need a simple majority, which is 11%. So if there's a hall that's 200 students, you only need 21 students to essentially endorse, which is not representative. So I don't see how the representative argument really stands. Secondly, as I stated earlier, we must give deference to all presidents. I feel like this resolution is extremely paternalistic, and we're essentially telling all presidents that we don't trust their judgment on how to best run their own halls. And then finally, I wouldn't call this an abuse of power, but I think this is definitely overreaching on the Senate's power, and we should allow all governments and all presidents to run their halls how they see fit.
Before we continue, I'll remember that the Senate is a teen time bomb as far as quorum is related. Please be quick. David.
Yeah, to that effect, I'll speak briefly to the voter turnout because I think this would have a bad effect on voter turnout. Voter turnout is something that's hard to predict, but J Council does have a couple pieces of data we can share. First, the number one way people learn about elections is through peer-to-peer interactions, such as endorsements. Second, the variable that we often find decreases turnout is voter fatigue. I think people are going to be confused given our experience with electoral college system of having like an election that seems like it's an electoral college style election before the real election, and voter fatigue can be an issue. Mainly on the enforcement, I just wanted to explain that part because that's enough reason whether you support it or not to vote this down, think about future efforts, move on, is that the election committee isn't like this roving police body that goes and finds things wrong with the elections. It acts specifically on allegations that are made against it, and the Constitution limits what it can decide to vote whether the candidate, campaign, or ticket in question is in violation of election or campaign rules. So we can't decide if polls are in violation of rules. Can't decide if people outside the campaign who happen to support the campaign are in violation of election rules. And the Ethics Commission can only decide if people in office violate election rules, which isn't necessarily the whole social media coordinator who posts something on Instagram. So for that reason, because this is not enforceable, I would suggest that we vote this down now and then move on to the other piece of business.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining. We are now voting. All those in favor of approving this order, please raise your hand. All opposed? All abstaining. The order is rejected. We have 2 items of new business on the agenda.
I motion to move SS 21-2207 to general orders.
07 general orders. Is there a second? All those in favor of moving the resolution to general orders, please raise your hand. All opposed? And all abstaining? The motion fails. Any other?
Okay.
Ben.
ASCM's consent to move SS 2015. Just congratulating the fencing team. Just really quickly. General orders.
Okay. All those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Okay, so I didn't see anyone opposed.
I motion. Special.
Okay, yes, you can. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? Cool. We're now in questions.
As unanimous consent to move out of question into debate.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, we move to debate. Point of debate.
I ask unanimous consent to move out of debate into a vote.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, we're at a vote. All those in favor of approving the resolution, please raise your hand. All opposed? All abstaining? Do you want to make ask for a motion?
Yes, friends, I'm not able to make a motion, but as per the Constitution, I am to appoint 2 assistant student union treasurers, and they are here right now, and I would like to nominate them officially.
Motion to move the nomination in the general orders.
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Cool. Let me get the link for you all. Claire, could you start reading?
Of course. Dear Senate, as stated in the undergraduate constitution of the of the University of Notre Dame, the
Oh, Paul.
Can we dispense with the reading?
Yeah.
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? Doing my best. Now you all can see the nominations. Let me know if you have any trouble accessing them.
also, if you would like to question.
Yes,
they are
we have
here.
our nominees here. Any questions?
Do you feel like they will do a good job?
They will.
Okay, perfect.
Candace, do you feel like you? Yes.
Perfect.
Questions?
One question, what's your favorite unit of currency? Both.
Bitcoin.
We'll actually move out of questions today.
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Hannah, and is it Henri?
Yeah.
Okay. Could I ask you to step out for a second while we debate your nominations? Were you seeking recognition?
I was just gonna ask to move out of debate.
Is that what you were doing?
Yes.
Second.
Before they-
Could you tell us a bit about the candidates? I mean-
Sure. Yeah, so Henrique is the finance, is data analytics and economics. He's been in contact with me even before I've released the applications, asking about what I do in my role, and even proposing solutions to problems that I was bringing up to him. He's very interested in archiving more of our data, so it's easier for future treasurers to easily access. And Hannah is super organized, super on top of it. She's always answered like my email for every step of this process. She's been the very first person to answer every single email that I've sent out. Someone she's really, as I said, very on top of it. Moreover, both of them have shown extremely potent academic skills, and I am so excited to hopefully be working with both of them should this be approved.
For what it's worth, I've worked with Enrique before, and I know that his financial management skills are great, and I'm sure that he will do a good job, an excellent job.
Thank you.
Thomas?
What sorts of problems and solutions?
Yeah, we're talking about some of the we're talking about like mainly it was mainly I was struggling with words for a second. It was mainly just about the way that we don't have a bunch of like budget data on the FMB website type thing. So we were talking about like archiving that so that it's really easy and easy and transparent for students to see like what like how allocations go, and B, like what like the like numbers were. I need to double check to make sure that that's fully allowed, but things like that where there were students that were like asking about like, oh, like how does this get done? Is it just because it kind of sometimes F&B could feel like it's behind locked doors, even though it's not always behind locked doors. Yeah.
Motion debating, you move to a vote.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? We're now in a vote. All those in favor of the approval of the nominations of the Assistant Student Union Treasurers? All opposed? All abstaining? If you could pull them in. Also, friends, as we.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, congratulations. I'll wait for this. Congratulations. As the first announcement, remember there's pizza and drinks in the back. Thank you all for a great term and for staying around. Especially you, Serena. Are there any other announcements really quick?
Really quick, please tell your hall, at your hall council down Fish Regatta this Saturday. Money going to a good cause here. Elementary school in San Diego. Or next Saturday, yeah, why did I say this?
You're doing great.
Barley Coffee House is tomorrow, so if you want to come see some niche talents or submit your own, talk to me. And there's also Panera, which is fantastic. I forget what building it is. It's like over by the Silica a little bit. Yeah.
For sophomores in the room, reminder that prom's in a week and a half. If you have a ticket and you're no longer planning on going, please return that ticket. It's in my most recent email, and that'll let the next person on the wait list get there.
Okay, there's a lot of sub events. Tomorrow, there's a hypnotist in the Carey Auditorium inside Hesburgh Library at 7 p.m. He did read my mind at an event last year. It was really unsettling, but I'm going back. And then Acoustic Cafe, also 8:30 to 10:30 on Library Lawn. The rain location is in Haggerty. Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Step in. High Verdes Peachtree Rascal. It's going to be awesome. So get your tickets. We still have some available. And then Antostal starts next week. We'll have original announcements, but it's going to be a good week.
So exciting. Ken?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor of adjourning our last. Please raise your hand. All opposed.
It's over. Thank you, Maddie. It's over.